Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Cause Leadership Podcast. Great to have you with us today, Ellen Graf-Martin, who is the founder and president of Graf-Martin Communications. And for those who don't know, it is a creative agency specializing in integrated brand strategy, marketing, public relations, and crisis communications. And Ellen, we're just so grateful for you to be on the podcast with us today and look forward to our conversation.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun.
It will be fun. Yes. Ellen, you've been serving many organizations over the years, certainly the 17 years that you've been running Graf-Martin. What are you seeing as far as trends in the charitable sector these days? Just start up, we can sort of go deeper from there.
Might be the least fun question, Dave, that
Okay.
we're gonna start with. No, it is fun. I've been doing this, work as an agency leader for 17 years, and prior to that, I worked in a national values-based business for 4 years. Prior to that, I was actually, working for a charity, a global charity for 5 years, and so I've kind of seen a lot over this that now if someone's doing math, they know that I've been doing this for a long time. That's what it means 26 years, I guess, I've been doing this in some form or another. And I've seen a lot of shifts over that time. Now, I don't know that I could have predicted any of them. Like, I remember when we were, um, it was kind of the glory days, the heyday of all things charity, and it was kind of like the 90s. Today's a very different day, but I do think, um, I don't want to use the phrase golden age because I don't think we have a golden age, but I do think we actually do have incredible opportunities that we just didn't have then. We had, I think when I started, it was this idea of like the world is our oyster and everyone's on board. And now I think the world maybe isn't our oyster, but man, there are incredible opportunities for those who are willing to scale the mountains of challenges and also to rethink the tools in our hands. Todd Bolsinger wrote a book called Canoeing the Mountains. And, if we have the right people with us and we're willing to rethink how we cross those mountains and what might be on the other side, keep in view what is on the other side. I do think we have incredible opportunities in front of us.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I agree with you, but I also suspect there are things that are keeping your clients up at night. Um,
Absolutely.
Curious from your perspective, what is the thing that, or the 5 things or the 10 things that keep them up at night?
As I spoke with a former client last week who raised, the question, they wanted to know exactly, is everyone feeling like there's going to be a decline in
Uh-huh.
giving?
Uh-huh.
That for a charitable client, that is their top of mind question. And I think for the CEO or executive director, that is their question is when is giving going to drop off if it hasn't already. What I heard from that leader was that things are flat. I think they perhaps expected that they would be down, but they were flat. And so for organizations that have been in a growth trajectory, I suspect from what I'm hearing that the general consensus is that they've stayed relatively flat rather than growing in this most recent quarter. And then for other organizations, they have seen a drop off in giving, not as dramatic as they expected. I think worst case scenario was on everyone's minds at the end of last year, but what we're hearing is that it wasn't as bad as they thought it would be. So that is one kind of trend. The other trend that we have seen is the drop off of a lot of that lower level giving. So those monthly donors. And I know we've been looking at this with organizations for a number of years. So either refreshing and renewing their monthly donor program and really working on the value proposition for that monthly donor program, then there's been a rise in major giving. So where giving has stayed flat or gone up, it is that gap is actually being met by major gifts. And so, and those are precarious because you may not get one next year. And if you're in business, they call it a guerrilla client. You might call it a guerrilla donor, not in the warfare phrase, but in the, the zoo phrase. And
Don't have
or
Walmart as
just
your only client. Is that that?
yeah, don't have Walmart as your only client, because if they drop off, you're in trouble. And so I think that charities are navigating what that looks like. I think the third trend is almost being numb to some of this, because and I get that. I really get that. Leaders didn't get into this for the problem solving of it. They got into it because they cared about the mission. And so I think there's can be that compassion fatigue and a bit of a numbness. And I think also we're seeing these trends to younger people engaging in the church, in the Bible, in ways that we've never seen in my lifetime, at least. And I think that there's this idea of how do we well, unfortunately, what I hear is how do we get them as donors?
Right. Yeah.
And that's actually not what I would lead with. I would say, how do we engage the right community, and how do we capture the hearts of those who would really care about what we do, and are younger. And so I think if that, I mean, those are big buckets, but those are some significant trends that we're seeing.
Yeah, and I obviously from our perspective, we see it on the talent side. We're seeing what I've described as the largest leadership transition that the sector has faced in decades, and that is definitely having I say trickle down effect, but in the sense it's a major issue, right? We've got um, boomer leaders who have been in place for many years who are leaving the marketplace. We have boomer board leaders who are leaving the marketplace, and we have boomer major gift donors who are leaving the marketplace. A perfect storm in many respects, right? And yet we do want to attract that next generation of talent. We want to attract that next generation of donor. Yet at the same time, there's a lot of influences on the market that are, some of it's out of our control, but some of it is in our control. And you and I have talked about this a little bit from a succession planning perspective. Certainly, 15 or 20 years ago, we didn't do planning it very well. So we're missing, I, I would say, a chunk of talent from the Gen X generation. And our leaders are really going to come out of that top end of the millennial group, at least for the next season, for sure.
Yeah.
Or need to, and if we lose them
Yeah.
from there, we're in trouble. So you're seeing it on the donor side. We see it a bit on the talent side, and yet the trending information around giving, it's tending, as you said, to be kind of that older major donor, and as they leave the marketplace, that's going to leave a number of organizations in a certain amount of limbo when it comes to their um, bottom line. So
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, we were just talking about that this morning, my team and I, about these leaders. And um, if it's okay, I'll just say what were talking about was the leaders that we are seeing that are successful, and the transitions that are being successful. And we're seeing that kind of elder millennial.
yeah.
And
Oh, okay.
it is when they have, what I was going to say, when they have some corporate experience
Mm,
and a true heart for the mission of the organization that they have actually lived out in some way. So not just an excitement for the mission, but a true alignment with the mission.
sure.
And then a board willing to mentor them. It's okay if they're boomers, but they have to be boomers willing to give leeway to that leader and truly believe in them and mentor them and have their back. And when I see that, what I'm seeing is growth in organizations. And I can immediately think of a few organizations that we're working with that I see incredible growth with them. And I know it's because those boomer leaders are believing, as board members, are believing in that next gen leader.
Yeah.
And and incredible things are happening when that does happen.
So that's a great point. And if you have some insight on this, I'd be curious. What are you seeing in that emerging leader, or what did you call them? Senior millennial?
Elder
Elder
millennial.
millennial.
Yeah. Yeah. They're kind of that
um,
between 37 and 45 is kind of
yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
seeing
that
this
makes
group.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So so corporate background, possibly, or a private background of some sort. What's it? A passion for what they're entering into. What are the other elements that make them a prospect for being good leaders for the next 25 years?
I'm thinking of, like, because they can immediately come to mind. They have some level of savvy around government engagement
Oh,
or
okay.
political engagement or
Yeah, yeah.
political savvy, at least, that they understand that the world is complex and that they need to work within all these systems. They're not thinking separation of church and state, as an example, but they're thinking, how do we integrate? They're living this kind of integrated perspective, and they have insight based on that, and respect for CRA guidelines and making sure that they are doing their due diligence, and also scrappy. There's a scrappiness to that leader that sometimes could be scary. So I think my early ministry experience or nonprofit experience was with super scrappy leader, incredibly entrepreneurial, didn't care if he knocked over, sacred cows, all of those things. And that worked in
Mm,
that season. I
sure.
think kind of that worked in the 70s, 80s, 90s, into this century, which feels so weird to say. But the new leader is similarly scrappy and similarly entrepreneurial, but not knocking over the sacred cows,
Okay. Yeah.
being wise about how they move the sacred cow. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. No, that's
yeah.
great. Yeah, and
And
that's
that,
a bit of that
yeah.
political savviness that you're talking about too,
Mhm.
right? Recognizing it
Yeah.
for what it is, but also recognizing that perhaps it needs to move a little bit. Yeah. No,
And
that's great.
a genuine care for the work of the organization, but that's not their main job. And I think in the past, we've seen leaders whose main function was really to move the activity of the organization forward. So if it was Bible translation, they were a Bible translator or had a passion for Bible translation. Now we see this young leader who is scrappy, entrepreneurial, and says, "This really matters. I care about this. I will do whatever is in my power to make this happen. And I have experience working for Apple, and I have experience in government advocacy. And now I'm going to pull all of that together to say, how do I create the organization that will make this happen, rather than feeling like they're the person who champions the actual work of the organization." So
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned coaching, like boards being willing to provide mentorship or coaching, and whether that happens from the board level or whether that happens using an external coach or consultant. I'm sure you do some of that yourself, maybe impromptu in many cases, perhaps even in a more structured way. But and if you do, please share. But just from the perspective of the kind of coaching or mentoring that would be meaningful to that age group, who, as you say, kind of late 30s, even into mid 40s, where they're in that sort of 20 or 25 years of traction ahead of them or runway as far as the career is concerned. What are the things that they need now that you're seeing and that are meaningful to them as well? It's not just sort of being imposed on them, it's being embraced by them.
so how we come alongside
Yeah.
is, and I'll give a really good example of this, is that there was an organization that we were doing a rebrand for.
Yeah.
And they brought in a new young leader in the midst of that rebrand, or just as we were getting started on it. So we'd done kind of the brand research, et cetera. And he came from a corporate background. And his expectation is that the things that we were working on would be in place for him to be able to succeed.
Okay. Yeah.
Had he started 6 months before, it would not be.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so, but it costs money and it's a bit of a risk to say, we're going to do this brand work, where charities in the past have often said, well, we know who we are. It's really hard to pass along institutional knowledge. It
Sure.
just is.
Yeah.
And so having that new leader come in and be given and collaborated with on building that really strong foundation of understanding, that was incredible coaching because he learned more about that organization in those first weeks of being there by doing that process with us. Like after that, we worked on a donor journey map and a marketing strategy, et cetera. And he had the tools he needed to succeed, which took a board and a team willing to invest. And it just put wind in his sails because, like, if you're coming from a corporate background, you expect that those things are in place. Most organizations don't have them in place. They don't have a brand playbook. They don't have a true marketing strategy with all the metrics and dashboard, et cetera. They just don't have that. And there is an expectation for that. I think the other piece is, I think this is where you would come in, Dave, because and I don't know that you do this, but I suspect because you've been on so many boards, I've seen you support leaders, especially through times of personal crisis and ensuring that their mental health, spiritual health, personal health is cared for. That also is what this leader needs because they are willing to do whatever it takes. I could see you coaching a board in that transition or succession planning and say, hey, have you noticed? Because sometimes we're bogged down in the minutia or the business of it. And we need someone who's that other set of eyes saying, here are the things that leader, I'm watching that leader and this is what I see that he needs or she needs. And so here are some creative ways to meet those needs. And I see that being incredibly powerful in not just onboarding properly, but retention
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
keeps them in the game.
Thank you, Ellen. Let's jump back to you. There's some couple of exciting things here. One, you're a member of the Marketing Hall of Fame.
I am.
And as you say, it's kind of an unusual accomplishment for somebody who focuses on nonprofit. So curious about that. This was interesting. I didn't know this. I knew you were a woman-owned business, obviously, but I didn't know it was only 1% of agencies that are women-owned. Tell us a bit about becoming a member of the Hall of Fame, and then give us a bit of a insight on, what it is to run an agency in today's marketplace and the things that you come up against.
Sure. Yeah. So it amazes me that idea that I could be in the Marketing Hall of Fame, but I'm also really proud of it because I really do see it as a win for the sector. Because when I started doing this, no one in the nonprofit world would say the word marketing. It was anathema. We have a communications department, we have a donor relations department, or all these things. We never would get. I wasn't allowed to say marketing, and still some organizations say, don't call it a rebrand, call it an organizational or identity refresh or something like that. We have to soft pedal it, but I don't think there's anything wrong in taking. This is that wise as serpents, gentle as doves. I think that we have to take that. Like if there is, we use all things natural, all things supernatural. So if I have wisdom and skills, let's use those. And they are called marketing. And it just because it is associated with the worst of how we manipulate people, what we can say is, you know what? We're not manipulating people. We're actually sharing an incredible mission and we're building a community. And how do we do that? With diligence. And so that's what I see marketing as. And so doing that with excellence matters for our sector. We don't want to be known for the worst marketing on earth. We want to be,
Absolutely not. Yeah.
we don't want to be also the ritziest, fanciest campaigns because our donors would not like that, including me. But let's be wise. Let's be stewards of the resources we have. So, so that's pretty amazing. It's a gorgeous award, sits on my desk, and I'm really grateful to be part of that. Especially, it was right around the same time that I was actually listening to a podcast and was listening to a woman share about how she was a marketing agency owner or an ad agency owner, discovered that only 1% of agencies in North America were owned and directed by women. And I thought, really? And then I started thinking, okay, well, my own mentorship journey has been very challenging because there hasn't been a woman that I can look to ahead of me. Like I really only know of one. And one who and I want to do this in a way that is unique to me and authentic to me. I thought this can't be true though. 1%, come on. That means 99% are owned by men and 1% are owned by women. Are you sure? And sure enough, like that's the data I found. And so we became, this is not something I thought we would ever do, but we became certified as a woman-owned business in Canada. And again, I thought, surely there are thousands of certified women-owned businesses in Canada. There are 600.
Really? Wow. Okay.
And
600 that are registered.
yeah.
Well, there could be more, but probably not a lot. Yeah. Okay. Wow.
And I know there are other women-owned businesses, but to me, and I had to prove that my husband wasn't secretly calling the shots behind the scenes. I don't know that any man has ever had to prove to a board that their wife is not secretly calling the shots, but I had to do that. And I remember the day I got the certification because it was actually a very rigorous process. I cried and I thought like, this is an accomplishment. Why did I cry? And I thought, I didn't realize how lonely it was. And this acknowledges that if you felt lonely, you weren't wrong. And I think that that mattered. The other thing that it raised for me, and this is kind of it seems ridiculous, but it's true. When we are talking, and you probably have this, talking to boards, talking to organizations, they really want diversity on their team. We hear this all the time. And they don't look actually at their vendor pool for diversity either. And so a way that you can add diversity to your organization is by hiring a woman-owned business and a woman-owned agency. And so government organizations are doing this. And again, this goes back to that younger leader. They're going to have an expectation of
Yeah.
diversity. And
Sure.
they know that the government is looking at diverse, how do we expand our vendor supply chain? And so this is something that matters now. It really, really does. So I'm hoping that by my doing this and building that diversity, that it actually opens up doors for more marginalized populations. I mean, I have all sorts of different privilege because of where I was born and when I was born and
Yeah. Sure.
all those things. So my hope is for more diversity, but I'm okay if people start with me.
Does that help you hire in a more diverse way because of that designation or people's interest in diversity? Does that help you when you're hiring for your own team?
That's a great question. I have never thought of that before. What I do know is that it really matters to my core team that we are making opportunities that the women on my team would not have otherwise. So I'm thinking of the young women on my team who are so smart, so smart, so capable. I've been able to give them opportunities to be entrepreneurial or to try something and grow their skills in areas that they would be pigeonholed if they were in any other organization. They'd be doing kind of one thing all day long, but they get to do so many different things. So I know that that really matters to them. And so, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Now, I know part of having your own agency obviously allows you to represent some of the things that you want to represent. I know, hope and generosity and justice are important to you. But even some of the work that you do for your clients, I don't want to, well, maybe I do. I'm really curious about your work with The Chosen. It's been such a successful production over the last several seasons now, and you've had an opportunity to participate in that. So anyways, whether it's that as an example or others, what is it about having your own agency and truly having agency that gives you the most satisfaction, joy, the kind of opportunities that you pursue, that type of thing? Just curious.
Yeah. The Chosen has been fun.
Hmm.
So I will
I
have
bet it
to
does, yeah.
talk about that. That is really fun. I think that one of the incredible opportunities that I have had, not every agency owner would have this, but we've designed the agency in a way that I never started out, like I didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to be an agency owner. I was asked to start an agency. by
Okay.
a client, someone who wanted to be my client.
Okay.
And,
Well, that's helpful.
so, yeah, that is very helpful. And it was at the bottom of the Great Recession. I was immediately out of a job when the organization I worked for went bankrupt. 74 years in business, they went bankrupt. And I was asked to start an agency. And my husband and I had only been married for 6 months. And, it seemed like, you know, like, "Oh, okay, I don't know. Like, is this what we're going to do?" And I remember us talking, Dan and I, and he said, "If you don't do this, who's going to?" And so we said, like, because of our faith, we said, "If this is the door God's opening, we'll walk through it until he closes it." And so I had never worked in an agency. And so at the time I was thinking I get to build the agency I want to work in. But what I realized shortly after was that I was actually building the agency that my clients needed. And so seeing, this idea of what are the gifts in my hands, who are the people in my circle, and what do they actually need? And how do I match those things? And so we've been able to really co-design with our clients over the years. What are the things that they need? We take our core skills and then can co-design solutions for them to support them. And one of those things that we uniquely do in entertainment. And so, yes, we have this incredible charitable sector work, but also entertainment, because what serves our sector,
Yeah.
and also what can we learn from working with entertainment, because it's just communication. It's all communications.
Yeah, sure.
And so we've gained a reputation as being the go-to agency in Canada for all kind of values and faith-based productions, whether they are a feature film or children's product or The Chosen. And so The Chosen came to us, and it's so funny because I think back years and years ago, one main reason why all these films and things are coming to Canada is because I kept getting asked, why don't these things come to Canada? And so
Okay.
I started a personal crusade to say Canada is not the poorer younger brother, and we need to serve people here too. The church was asking for this. Literally, the church was asking for this content. It was actually with the movie God's Not Dead many, many years ago. They were calling us. I don't know why they called us, but they called us asking for this. So I went on a campaign to say, you guys have to start thinking of Canada. And so fast forward many years, then when The Chosen was going to take season 3 into theaters, they contacted us because we are the go-to person, and we don't just do PR. We are brand strategy, marketing strategy, and PR kind of
Yeah.
really integrated. And so it made a lot of sense for The Chosen being on a big growth trajectory at that
Yeah.
time. A lot of
Sure.
people hadn't heard of it, but a lot of people did.
Yeah.
And so being able to help them grow, and they really do fit into our Hope, Generosity, Justice. They have an incredible partnership with Come and See Foundation. And so we're able to support the foundation as well as the entertainment properties.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Well, it's and it continues. You're still supporting them as they go into the next seasons. Yeah.
It's exciting. It's a big season coming up. It's a really big season
Yeah,
coming up.
indeed. You mentioned talking about not just being a PR agency, but branding and marketing and that type of thing. And we've talked about the charities, we've talked about some of the entertainment groups that you've worked with. But when you started to mention your last a few minutes ago about co-designing solutions with your client. I'm curious about that. What is when you kind of take that apart? What does that look like?
And the reality is I'm a terrible salesperson, and so that's maybe why, like, I'm terrible in
Okay.
that I don't wanna sell myself,
Yeah.
I just wanna help. I'm an Enneagram too, I just wanna help.
Sure.
And so I think that's how this started and this is what I tell our team, we start by listening.
Yeah.
We
Right.
start by listening. So what is and we have a whole series of questions that I've developed to work through. So what is the real problem? What is the stated pain point of an organization? So whenever we do an intake with a client, or not an intake, but even a discovery. So what is the pain point right now? But then what is the real problem behind the pain point?
Yeah. Yeah.
who is involved in solving the problem. And then from there, there are a bunch of other questions, but what is even their timeline? So when does this need to be resolved by? Usually they come to us when there's a problem. And so then our job is to say, okay, what are the tools in our hands that could fit into this? And what are the insights? Now, we've worked with over 200 charities over the last 17 years. And so we have a lot of experience, and we've seen what worked, what didn't work. When we tell an organization, this genuinely should strengthen your organization and take you in the right direction, we are telling the truth from experience. And so from that, we say, here's what we're hearing and what we would suggest. And then we're able to take from our toolkit and really match the right tools. And so if they say, you know what, I really want to know what our donors are thinking right now, or they don't say that. What they would say is, I don't know why we're not finding new donors.
Yeah. Right.
That's what
Yeah.
they would say. Say,
Yeah.
okay, well, what are you telling them?
Yeah.
And so then we can dig in. We're like, well, I know at the bottom of that is a brand problem. And then when we start doing some of that brand work, we can then move into a thought leadership plan, a marketing strategy, because a marketing strategy is just how you're going to connect with donors.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really what it is.
Yeah.
And if you're a charity, uh, and then take it from there. So it's really that figuring out, how do we take their organization's situation into account, their budget, even their staffing level. So what is realistic for them? And then we co-design the solution to support them. So I hope that answers your question.
No, that's helpful. Oh, well, and uh, what you're talking about is different than just, here's fundraising in a bottle and,
No, yeah,
open the bottle and you get results, that kind of thing, right? So it's much deeper than just
absolutely.
kind of adopting a program, if you will. Uh,
Yeah. And that's our mission. So our mission statement as an agency is odd for an agency. Our mission statement is to strengthen organizations committed to hope, generosity, and justice. And so if we were just to we could just open a bottle. I could say, you know what, this trick works, because there are things that I know that help, but I know that that will cure the symptom, the pain point. It's like giving them Tylenol for a toothache when
right.
really they need a filling.
Yeah.
And they're just gonna, I could keep selling them Tylenol because they'll keep
Mhm.
coming back because it'll
Right.
get worse. But the reality is, if we can actually just fix the tooth once, then maybe we are going to be stronger in the long run. Let's strengthen the organization. And I have seen that then leads to growth over and over again. When we track data, there's typically kind of a minimum of 10% growth year over year, and usually somewhere between 10 and 20% growth year over year when we do the right strengthening work. And the organization is committed to making it work. So,
Yeah. So obviously, in some respects, there's lots of fun in helping an organization grow, and I'm sure you bring all sorts of value from that perspective. But the other value you bring is when an organization is in crisis, and crisis communications. There's a specific issue that's either been percolating or it's randomly come to the surface for some reason. But I'm sure you're dealing with organizations in that sense, but also in the sense of being prepared from a risk management perspective. Can you talk to us a little bit about how to manage crisis from a communication side?
yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the main things to know is that a crisis really typically always is brewing
Yeah.
somewhere,
Right.
because it isn't necessarily anything you do, but it could be someone you worked with, or someone who partnered with you, or a donor who made a large gift that you find out committed fraud. Or, we've had one client who, that one of their crises was that they had attended a job fair at a location that ended up having a youth mental health crisis and death by suicide. And someone found a post on their social media and shared it and said, and implicated them in this.
Boy.
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, you don't, when I say a crisis is brewing, it's not just because I'm a negative Nancy and want to sell a product. Really, I don't. I genuinely want to strengthen organizations. And so the first thing to know is that a crisis is happening and be watching for what those crises could be. The other thing is to have and I would say in tandem, is to have a crisis communications plan in hand that your board understands and that your staff team understands. Because should a crisis happen like that, the last thing you want is to not have a plan and know what to do next or what to say. But a good crisis plan has really solid holding statements, has like a chain of command, a crisis team. And so when we create those for an organization, we'll also do then a training session. We'll give a cheat sheet to the board.
Yeah.
Another example is you have a board member. This is very common. Board member out playing golf, and his buddy says, "Hey, I heard about such and such that happened at
Yeah.
your organization. Like, what's going on? What are you guys going to do about it?" And they say, "Oh, I don't know. I never heard about that." And then the next thing you know, there's negative talk, whether it hits the news or not. You don't want somebody sharing that, yeah, their board is totally out of touch. They didn't even know that this had happened with this guy. And like, that's the last thing you need. So, so having that plan in place, trained, your board trained and your staff trained, and letting your insurance company know that you have this in place may actually get you a discount. So if you think about it, it reduces your risk, right? And then the next stage would be monitoring for a crisis. So we offer that to our clients, where we have an online service that is pretty robust, that we're able to keep monitoring for crises. And then it would be building your reputation proactively.
Yeah. Sure.
So, is the first thing that someone finds when they look for you the crisis that happened 5 years ago? Or is the first thing that they find 18 different pieces of information, videos of your CEO that show that they're trustworthy,
Yeah. Yeah.
and maybe that one disgruntled person is not? So
That's
there's a lot.
yeah, there's a lot. Wow, thank you. That was I don't think most organizations or charities, even their boards, would be thinking at that depth. So
No. And
yeah.
and if you are on a board
Hmm.
and something happens to your CEO, you
Yeah.
are now the spokesperson. And
Yeah.
Dave, if I tell you that, do you have a holding statement for any of the boards that you are on that you would say to the media? Because if you say no comment, it makes you look guilty.
Yeah.
Um,
That's right.
so, do you know what to do if they try to trick you into saying, like, how comfortable are you if CBC called today and said, did you know that this board that you're on, that there's been a financial scandal?
Right.
Do you know what to do?
Yeah.
And it's actually not hard work. It just is intentional work. So, yeah.
To tell them to phone Ellen.
Yeah.
Um,
But you know what? I actually can't help if you haven't done the work in some
no,
ways, or it's
exactly.
going to be really, really expensive for me to help
That's right.
because you're not prepared. But if we're prepared, it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, it's a lot less expensive if you're prepared. So,
Wise counsel. Thank you. That's great. So I would encourage anyone who's listening, call Ellen and talk to her about what your crisis communication plan is, because it's vital for any board these days, for sure, especially in the charitable sector. Um, Ellen, you've done some other things as well, and one of them is called the Table Leadership. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I'd love
yeah.
it.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
like our listeners to hear about it.
10 years ago, I was sharing with my team about a book I was reading. And actually, if anyone knows her, Melinda Estabrooks, she's like the biggest cheerleader of the people around her. She was on my team at the time. And she said, "Ellen, who do you tell about these things that you read?" And I said, "You guys."
Right. Yeah.
And she said, "Well, you need to be telling your peers." And I said, "I don't have any peers." Going back to that 1% of agency owners, I'm
Yeah.
like, "Who are my peers?" And she said, "Sure you do. You have peers." And so my team actually said, "We're going to find them." And they made a list of women across Canada that I really should connect with. And from a very relational standpoint, not to sell them anything, but to connect with. And she said, "These are the people you need to be telling about what you're reading." And so I actually started it as a bit of a book club.
Okay.
sent out invitations to a maximum of 50 women because I thought, how many can I handle? And within 24 hours, I had more than 40 spaces taken. And so the hunger and the need was really there. And then, so we started out as a book club. And what it really has turned out to be is a very authentic group of women who, I mean, I am generally what you see is what you get. And so I'm going to show up there the same way. And I think it's become a very safe space for women who are leading and who are in the public eye, or leading other leaders to show up, have people pray for them. We've had a lot of guests and authors speak to us over the years on a digital, like a virtual call across the country. It's been really rewarding.
It's awesome. Oh, well, very good. So that kind of leads into a little bit, maybe a start for you, but just self-care and sustainability. You're a leader. You're working with other leaders. The table is a group of leaders as well. And, we're finding today or hearing a lot today about burnout and certainly concern in our sector, a sector that gives back and often gives back at its own, at the cost of leadership in some respect. What are some of the things that you've been able to do that you're able to share with other leaders that are meaningful and helpful as care?
Yeah, and I am not unfamiliar with burnout because if you think about the number of organizations that I work alongside, the stories that I hear can shred your soul. And when you hear them day in and day out and day in and day out, and it feels like people's lives are at stake with everything I write. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
absolutely.
Um, so I am no stranger to that. And I think one of the realities of being a woman in leadership is that the things that are asked of me are different than of my husband or of you. So for example, at the school, even if I would tell them, please call Dan, they would call me if there was problems. And we have a child with different needs and challenges. And so, I mean, when the rubber hit the road, who's still the first call is mom. And when the world is hard, our kids who struggle really struggle. And last year, especially, the world was really hard. And through
Yeah,
COVID, the world was really hard.
yeah,
So, I was the mom who was trying to keep my business going through COVID and homeschool my kid with learning disabilities. That is actually, it turns out it's impossible. And so I think that remembering our humanity is really important and remembering that, yeah, I own an agency, but I'm a person first. And so people are very happy to ask me for sponsorship and for money and contributions, but they don't realize that I'm giving back by giving discounts to charities and all
yeah.
those things. So, I mean, that
Sure.
pressure as well.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
understand that. I had an email this morning asking for
Yeah.
a sponsorship, so yeah.
Yeah, and I love sponsoring things that I can, but I also like the reality is the world is hard right now. The economy is challenging. And so I'm facing the same things that charities are, but in different ways. So, but honestly, for me, and I gave this advice again, I was speaking to a charity leader last week and I said, you know what? I picked up an old hobby again and it is so fun. And I am having so much fun.
Okay.
Remembering I'm good at something. And I think, especially in a challenging time, we hardly ever get to finish anything at work. Like, when was the last time you actually finished something at the end of the day? It was mostly, if you finished something, it was that you sent an email in response to someone else and they're going to reply to you because they still have another question. But that was finishing. It's not really finished. The window is not closed in your browser. But I picked up an old analog hobby and I'm going to brag on myself. I'm a very talented sewist. And
Okay.
so I'm killer with a sewing machine, man. And
Yeah.
it takes a lot of skill and engineering and understanding science and textiles and I'm having so much fun and I'm finishing projects and it feels incredible. So I think picking up something that is offline, analog,
Yeah.
and that you get to finish something and that nobody's going to die if you don't. make
Yeah.
your bag.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really important.
That's great. That's awesome. Good. Thank you. Maybe just if we could talk about talent a bit more, and particularly team building. And this could be from your client's perspective or even from your own perspective, but we're in a unique time, I think. Certainly in the charitable sector.
Uh,
I
uh-huh.
would say that it's not that it's not affecting the corporate or the private sector space. It's just that they have more talent to choose from. They have more money to support it. The charitable sector is generally under pressure financially and from a talent perspective. So from what you've seen, from what you're hearing from your clients, what are the biggest talent challenges?
I think that a lot of organizations have not been prepared for the
Mm,
talent.
okay.
And so I wonder if it isn't that the talent doesn't exist,
Mm,
but that they haven't prepared their organization for it. And I'll use this, it goes back to brand. So when we do a brand process for a client. And I go back to that example I gave you where that young new leader came in and we were doing the brand process. His expectation was that that would be in place so that there would be clarity. I know even on my own team, the call I get all the time from my team is they want clarity. I think sometimes when people say they want clarity, they actually want certainty.
yeah. Yeah.
But if we can give clarity on what we can be clear on, then it attracts the right people to us for the long term. And so, what I have seen over and over again doing that brand process is that as we gain clarity on who we serve best, who we really are as an organization, how we speak, what not what we do, but what is unique about what we do, and have clarity. A lot of organizations think how they do their work is their uniqueness, but it's not because it's just I don't care necessarily. Or do people really care that McDonald's has not a flame grilled burger and Burger King does? Like
Yeah.
that's how, but
Yeah.
it's the, but what is really unique about our organization and what can we promise consistently to the donors that we serve and who really are they? Who do we serve best?
Yeah.
Then that clarity I have seen bind a team together in a way that nothing else I've ever experienced in my career has. So when the team leaves, it is like they are all now on the same boat. And often before they get there, it's like they're all on different boats and they don't totally know what direction they're rowing in. But it's a lot easier to figure out the trajectory of something when you're all on the same boat.
Yeah. So let me press into that just a little bit. And I'm just purely thinking out loud here, but finding fundraisers is challenging across the board. And in some cases, probably challenging for organizations, maybe in the faith area that really is a limited talent pool.
Uh-huh.
But let me posit it this way in the sense that almost anyone could be a fundraiser, right? It's about building relationships. Yes, at some point you're going to ask somebody for money in some version or another, but the kind of clarity that you're talking about, and as it relates maybe to fundraisers and the talent that we need for that space, how can we help organizations look outside the traditional view of what it means to be a fundraiser when we apply some of the clarity that you're talking about?
So if I said to you, Dave, what do you care the most about? Like, what is like, Dave, what do you really care about?
I
Like,
love
what
my Labradoodle.
your Labradoodle? Okay. So, um, we are going to have a charity to save Labradoodles.
Okay.
So,
Maybe I could have
Labradoodle.
come up with a better answer. I'm sorry. What do I
Okay,
love?
a
Uh,
specific Labradoodle rescue. And I was to come to you and say, Dave, here's our group of people that we serve best. They are men between 50 and 60 who their kids are going to be leaving the home soon. They know they need to go for walks, and their Labradoodle gets them taking care of their mental health and their physical health. It's something that now their wife and they can focus on together. Their kids are in college and we paint this out, and what they're most worried about is their aging parent and what they're going to do next in their life and what does retirement look like, et cetera, et cetera. this is the person that we serve best with our rescue. And here's what's really unique about us is that we don't just care about the Labradoodle, we care about the owner. And we really care about their mental health because we see that this is a challenging season, and we understand how this Labradoodle can really benefit their life, their family, and by doing this, we have seen marriages not break up when the kids go to university because we've seen that cohesion, like family cohesion through this. It is really uniquely by caring for both for the dog and for the family that is engaged and saying, because, for resilience. Dave, could you help us fundraise for that?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, yeah, I could tell that story. But if I say first, Dave, are you a fundraiser? You say, I'm not a fundraiser, but it's really, if you know who you are as an organization and, and say, and these are the things, that's why brand really, really matters, because you can then raise up a fundraiser, because I think this is something we forget. And I'm actually delivering a keynote at the Faith Fundraising and Communications Symposium in a few weeks. And I'm going to talk about how we are not fundraisers. We are humans created in the image of God. And we don't work with donors. We work with humans created in the image of God. I don't work business to business or business to charity. I work human to human. And if we remember that what our job is, and you said this, it's relationships, but what are relations like? You're not going to be friends with everybody.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not fair to ask someone who can give to give just because they can, because they're not going to be friends with everybody. They're not going to have a relationship with everybody but we want to find the people that fit us best. We need to be able to really identify that donor. Like, who is that person? What do they really care about? And what does that match what we really care about? And now how do we connect? That's brand.
Yeah.
And that's the best kind of fundraising, because you're actually building a community of support. You're not just sending out a salesperson into the marketplace. And I think we did need more rigor in our fundraising as a sector. Absolutely. We have needed more rigor, but I hate when we use phrases like we're leaving money on the table. I
Yeah.
hate the phrase lead magnet, because I donate to things. I'm not moneyed to be sucked by a magnet. Like,
Yeah.
that's,
Right.
I hate those things. That's just my personal bias. But when we build genuine relationship in a community of caring, it's very different. So I think anyone can actually be a fundraiser if they have the right tools. So think back, what are the tools and systems that are in place? Let's get that strong foundation. What is the coaching? It kind of goes all full circle of our conversation. Like, what are the leaders? How are they mentoring that person? Do you have the right pieces in place, like clarity on mission and on brand? And then can you now release that person to go and do the work? I mean, then, like you said, almost anyone can be a fundraiser. So
Yeah. No. Well, thank you. I put you on the spot on that one, and
that's okay.
uh,
Labradoodles, I tell you, I don't know if I'll ever do a campaign for a
although I
Labradoodle.
thought you nailed the demographic just perfectly, because that's me. But anyways, for all listening, that was fresh off the top of Ellen's head. She didn't have a chance to think about that one.
I did not.
Good job.
Yeah.
Anyways, as we wrap up here, a couple things. One is, what are you excited about looking into the next, whether it's 5 months or 5 years? And how can people learn more about Graf-Martin Communications? Where can they go to find out information? But let's start with what you're excited about, and I'll try to in touch with you.
I am actually excited about that idea of the return to analog and
Hmm.
community building.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm really excited about that, because I think that that is actually going to be one of the strongest tactical strategy or most strategic tactics to implement in upcoming seasons. I think, yeah, we absolutely do need the digital, and I'm leaned into how we leverage AI instead of just exploit. We don't want to exploit AI, and we don't want to we don't want to rely on AI, but we want to leverage AI to be exceptional. I think that's
Yeah.
given us that opportunity. But I would say that return to community building will be what sustains organizations for the next generation. An example, I married into a Mennonite family in southwestern Ontario. So that means like they've lived here since 1780. And there's community. The community is strong, and it is nowhere stronger than at a pie auction. And if you've never experienced a pie auction, I paid $250 for a bowl of my mother-in-law's tapioca
I'm kidding.
at at a Stag and Doe dessert auction just last month, and it was the best of seeing a community come together because you get this dessert then to your table. You pay a ridiculous amount for the dessert. Sounds nonsense, but then you get this dessert and then you get plates and spoons and everyone enjoys it. And it was fun, and it built a community of caring around the couple that we were supporting. We did the similar thing at another fundraiser just recently. And so I do think that return community really matters, and community lives in the analog, not, I think we've always thought of digital community. So I'm excited about that.
Thank you. Ellen, how do people get in touch with you and Graf Martin, and how can they engage with your services?
Sure. I would love to connect. So I'm on LinkedIn, Graf Martin with a GRAF hyphen Martin. So Ellen Graf-Martin on LinkedIn. And then our website is grafmartin.com, no hyphen. So GRAFMARTIN.com. And yeah, I would love to connect. Or if you see me at an event, or if we're going to be at an event, please come and say hi. I would love to chat.
Okay. And we'll put all that information in the show notes as well so people can click on those links and find you. Ellen, thank you for being our guest today. It was great to have you, and really appreciate your insights. Wish you continued success as you serve the charitable sector and value-based entertainment. So that's exciting as well too. So thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Dave.